Welcome back to Checkpoint. We thank you so much for staying with us and making the time to be with us for our discussion tonight. It is exactly 120 days to go to the general election, August the 8th, 2017. And there's no better day than to speak to IEBC Commissioner Dr. Roselyn Akombe on election preparations. We've seen quite a bit happening with nominations. We're seeing billboards up. We'll talk about all of these and more. So please keep your questions and comments coming in. We will definitely try and put as many of them to her as we can. Dr. thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Yvonne, for having me.
So let's start by talking about just, sort of general preparations and what your thoughts are in terms of that task force report that came out from the Commission itself, taking a look at the weaknesses, the constraints. What would you say you've learned from that report in terms of just getting yourself ready for August the 8th?
Again, thank you so much, Yvonne, for having me here. And as you said, it's 120 days to elections, and we are absolutely ready for the big day. We can't wait for it to come.
Good to hear.
We've been preparing ourselves. We have read through several reports that have been done on what happened in 2013. We've actually gone back to the observation reports that were done in 2007 because we do not want to leave any gaps. So we've read through all the observation reports, all the analytical reports that have been done to look at where the gaps were. We've identified actually one big gap as training of staff, because what we have read from all the reports and from our staff who were here with us in 2013 is that there was very little time given to training, especially training to use the new gadgets that had been put in place. So we have rolled out a plan for training, actually that is beginning this week from the 11th, to ensure that we have a longer period of training for all our staff. We also learned that one of the biggest weaknesses throughout the period was technology and the use of technology, mostly the issue of integration and compatibility of the systems. So what we've been trying to do, as you saw from the contract that we gave to Saffron, was to ensure that we have systems that are compatible, that are fully integrated. One other lesson that we learned was that there were weaknesses in the results framework. There wasn't really a very clear way of managing results, I'm talking about election results here. There wasn't a very clear path through which officers knew that this is one step you move from here to another step.
The whole transmission process?
The whole transmission process, from the time of counting, tallying, to how the results move from the polling station to the National Tallying Center. So what we've done is come up with a completely new results management framework that I understand has been through a long process of consultation with various stakeholders and has now been approved by the Commission and is available on our website, and we'll be making it available also this week to all political parties and other stakeholders so that they are familiar with the framework. We also learned that one of the other weaknesses that was there was really information sharing. People did not know. The stakeholders were not aware of all the different things that the Commission was doing. And what we have sought to do is to try and have a very clear way of communicating with our stakeholders, have forums where we interact with them so that they can be able to learn what we are doing, and so that we can increase our transparency in ensuring that we have free, fair and credible elections. So we've really taken into consideration all these reports, and we can go, as we have this discussion, we can go through some of the things, some of the changes that we are making and how we are working now, so that we do not repeat the mistakes of both 2013 and 2007.
Great. So you've mentioned the integrated election management system, and yet even with that, we've seen quite a number of issues, the tendering process, the cancellation of that tender, the awarding to Saffron that some people are saying, well, looks like there was favoritism here, even in the manner in which that was conducted. The fact that Saffron had in fact been disqualified by the tendering committee, and that the Commission then went against the advice of the tendering committee, giving this to Saffron. What do you have to say about that? Because that is one of the biggest issues, I think, in terms of the credibility of the election, the integrated election system. But yet that too has been fraught with a lot of controversy.
Let me be clear. There was no decision that was made against, there is no decision that the Commission made that was against what the advice we got from the Evaluation Committee. The Evaluation Committee was very clear in what they submitted to the Commission. They outlined the issue of integration. They outlined the importance of timeliness and advised the Commission that based on the fact that we did not have enough time, that if we went ahead with the process of procurement as it was at that time, we were never going to meet the timeline. And the timeline is a legal timeline. We have an April timeline to be able to deliver, to have the technology here in the country.
It should have been here by now.
It is on its way. That is already on its way. We can update you on where we are with that one. We've already finalized all the paperwork related to that technology, and we expect that sometime this week that should be available here, given that the only issues that we're dealing with are the usual custom clearance issues that we have in all our African countries. So that is the only reason why the technology is not, and we're not yet again beyond our timelines in terms of availability. So I just wanted to clarify there that the Commission did not go against the advice that came from.
But the tender committee cited some anomalies with Saffron, talking about its expired tax compliance certificate, lack of proper credit rating papers. So why go against the tender committee evaluating the bids that were received from 10 companies? Why go with Saffron again? In this instance?
Yvonne, we asked those questions because as commissioners, when we took the oath of office, one of the other things that we swore to do is to do everything without fear or favor, and we had no intention of favoring one company or another. When we got into office and we were given, that is the report you're referring to is for the previous evaluation committee that had been set up. We looked at what exactly was missing, and we asked Saffron, we asked the accounting officer, who is our CEO, to make sure that we had all those documentation. And it was after we were satisfied as commissioners that all the information that had been missing in the previous submission was already there. And we went point by point. We even included one other element that was not in the evaluation report, because at that time there were reports in the media, mostly reported in the French media, that there had been a case in which Saffron had been involved in Nigeria, and we wanted to be sure that that case was no longer an issue, and we got evidence, we got written evidence showing that that appeal had been dismissed and that Saffron had been found not guilty of the offense. So it was after we had satisfied ourselves that those provisions that had been missing in the previous submissions were all done, that we went and proceeded with that. There was no violation of the law. The law allows us to be able to do procurement, direct procurement. We followed all the procedures related to direct procurement to be able to get the technology. Because remember, Yvonne, our goal here was to make sure that we have a system in place that will fully integrate with what we have, that will be fully compatible, that will get to the country on time to avoid the mistakes that we had in 2013 when we had Face Technology, which was a new software, being put in last minute into the BVR kits provided by Saffron, and it failed. It was a failure of technology that we did not want to see ourselves repeating in 2017.
All right. Let's talk about party nominations. Your declaration that they should be done between the 13th and the 26th. At loggerheads with the NASA, alliance on this one. In fact, ODM leader Raila Odinga is on record as saying that they will not take orders from the Commission on when to conduct nominations, including the new regulation about, making sure that they've gazetted the names and sending those names to you in a format on CD. Let me read to you a part of a statement that I have from Norman Magai, who's from the NASA Secretariat. He says, our position is that IEBC should not use the requirement for aspirants list to visit hardship on parties. He goes on to say that the Commission is not required by law to verify anything on the list. Its duty is simple, to receive the lists and gazette them, and that you're acting in a manner to trigger confusion and chaos by pushing parties to conduct nominations within a restricted window.
Yvonne, I do not see us having any particular conflicts with any political party at this point. We had very, very interesting and very useful discussions with the NASA core principals last week, and we explained why we were proceeding with the issues of gazettement and regulations related to political parties. It is in the law. These are the amended laws that were passed by the members of parliament of all these political parties. And we explained to them that we are only following the law. And the law requires now that we have to gazette names of aspirants before they go ahead with their nominations. And I think we reached a mutual agreement with ODM party that they will delay their nominations, their primaries, until we have the names gazetted. So honestly, we do not see any, I know that in the media it sells when, when there is a sense that there is a fight between one party or another party, but we are an arbiter, we are a referee. We cannot be at loggerheads with any political party. We have explained, that's why we reached out to NASA to explain, and we are reaching out to all the other political parties actually that have not met the full provisions of what we had asked them to do. We had given them templates to be able to use in their submissions. Almost all of them did not do it correctly, and it's not only ODM.
The thing is coming a little later in the day. I mean, last week was when they were receiving that circular from the Commission as to, stating the gender, whether they're persons with disability, and, sort of disaggregating that data for their list of aspirants.
But that information has always been available. We are only implementing what the law required us to do. It is the same political parties that in Parliament asked that when we gazette, they were very specific on what we need to do to put in the gazette.
So just following the law.
We're just following the law.
Okay, and violence during nominations. I mean, we saw that in Migori. What is the Commission's position on that? And a lot of Kenyans are asking, would we see a point, Commissioner, at which persons that are found to be guilty of engaging in violence during the nominations, during campaigns, and the run-up to the election, could we see them being barred from running for office?
We are absolutely ready to do that, Yvonne, because we cannot condone violence in our country. We cannot condone violence, especially now with the political parties' primaries. It is absolutely against the law. And what, as a commission, we have done is that under the leadership of Chairman Chibukati, we have now set up what we call the Code of Conduct Enforcement Committee. We are working with our investigators. We have investigators within the commission who are going around to monitor what is going on in terms of violence. We are asking our citizens, our number one stakeholder, the Kenyan voter, to keep vigilance and send us any information they might have of candidates of political parties that are involved in violence, and we'll take action.
Commissioner, will you take action? We have seen this a number of times. Persons say we will take action. Let me give you an example of where perhaps we haven't seen action. Maybe it is there and you can inform us today. The official campaign period begins in June, actually on the 28th. And your communications manager said, we're advising our coordinators to forward pictures of the billboards. We would like to remind politicians that the campaign period has not begun and they should not engage in early campaigns. This was in December. Yet now, everywhere you go across this country, there are billboards of aspirants, both presidential and throughout all the other 5 positions. And yet we see nothing being done. In fact, at some point, it was said that you promised to tear them down and bar any politicians breaching this. But surely everywhere you go, you take a look at billboards that are happening, and that is definitely campaigns. All the principals across from Jubilee to NASA have gone around the country, are going around the country as we speak, saying this is why you should vote for me, I'm the better candidate than, the next. But IEBC has been quiet on this one.
Yvonne, our law is very interesting, because when you look at our campaign law, there is a murky line between what is called popularization and what is called campaigning. And that is the thin line that we've been trying to study, and having our lawyers within the commission look to see what is within our capability or what is within our laws to be able to implement as the commission. And that has been something you have not seen us as new commissioner come up and commissioners come up and repeat the information that you have seen there from our communication person, which was issued, as you have said, in December. That was before we were sworn in.
So a billboard, Commissioner, that says so-and-so Tosha or so-and-so senator or women's rep is popularizing the party. Surely that is campaigning for an individual.
Yvonne, I think one of the things that I've been stressing here today is about really the violence. I think it is important. That is one area that we have factored in. We have seen how difficult it is for especially women candidates when you have violence in political party campaigns. For us, that is absolutely an absolute priority for us to focus on, because if we do not curb the increase in violence in political parties, what it means is that a lot of women candidates are either going to stay home A lot of women voters will stay home because they cannot be able to deal with the violence. So that has been our *1 target, so that we can ensure that we do not disenfranchise anybody because of the violence that we have in the country.
That there won't be a murky sort of line. I mean, you've talked about that with campaigns versus popularizing the party. But surely, even in the run-up to the mass voter registration exercise, the second one, when all of the candidates went around saying, you know, go register and vote for me, but, you know, that could have been popularized in the mass voter registration, but it was also using that opportunity to ask for votes. So if with this one of campaigning it's murky, so how about with violence? Because wouldn't it get to a point where we say, okay, but it wasn't me that caused the violence, it was my supporters and that sort of thing? Because on this one, it just seems like 4 months down the line, here we are with the campaign issue. Now you're saying it's a murky line.
No,
so
give us a chance. Give us a chance to see how we deal with the issue of violence, because that is one thing that we have prioritized. We are ready to follow the steps that are there, which by law, which is to warn you, and then we can also give you a fine. But the one that we really look forward to doing is to be able to bar political parties or candidates who are engaged in violence from participating in the elections.
And what about with campaigning? You want us to give you time as well? Surely this was something that would have been anticipated in the run-up to this, because Kenyans are constantly in campaign mode. From August the 9th, the campaign cycle will begin all over again, even while we wait for the results of the election, quite frankly.
Absolutely.
Something not foreseen, Commissioner?
We are absolutely ready to deal with any violence that is related to campaigns. Any campaigns that are not done according to the code of conduct is something that we are absolutely ready to take action, and we have looked at it within the commission, and Chairman Chebukati and all the commissioners will be sitting in that enforcement committee and want to make sure that we teach a few people that they cannot cause violence in the country. Because if they continue with the violence now, during the political party campaigns, you can be sure that this violence will go on during the elections. And we cannot have our politics in the country just dominated by thuggery. It has to be something that we have to address, and address it in a very firm way.
Okay, so as we talk about political campaigning, let's talk about the caps that were put in place by the Commission and the sort of rules and regulations around that. You know, asking political parties and candidates to establish campaign financing expenditure committees. Has this happened?
We would have loved to have that happen, Yvonne.
Why hasn't it happened?
Unfortunately, our members of parliament, in their wisdom, our very efficient 11th parliament, deferred they deferred that issue, the issue of campaign financing, to the 2022 elections. So as of now, the Commission cannot proceed with that implementation, because that law has been blocked in Parliament for now.
Yeah, but because you see, it takes us, you know, round and round back to the same issue, because these are the same parliamentarians, of course, that are same players in the election. So are you saying now that you have no capacity whatsoever to cap any spending?
You know, Yvonne, we can only go by the law. As commissioners, as the IEBC, we are only here to implement the law. If we have a law that is there that says campaign financing, we'll absolutely follow it. But currently, that law does not exist. So on what basis will we go ahead on issues related to that? You know, this is for the Kenyans, the Kenyan people, to see how they can increase their advocacy with the members of parliament, with our population in general, to ensure that those provisions are there. But for now, the IEBC can only implement what is in the law, and that is what we are doing right now.
All right, so when do we hope to see, you know, in terms of getting some clarity? And I really want to get perhaps a more concrete answer to the question of campaigning that is, some may say is already happening. You're saying that, you know, the area is a bit gray in terms of popularizing a party and campaigns. When do we hope to get some sort of clarity on that? Because Kenyans are being subjected to this every day as we speak. And it might be something that people say, but if the Commission can't crack down on something as simple as campaigning, then who's to say you're going to be able to do that on a number of other issues?
We have done on a number of other issues. If you look at what happened this weekend, You know that we had put very clear our timelines on when people are supposed to carry out, when political parties are supposed to carry out their primaries. We had said very clearly that the timelines for doing your primaries are this. We had also made it very clear that for you to be able to go ahead with your primaries, we must get all your details, all the aspirants, all their ID numbers in the correct template before, for us to gazette before you can proceed.
Commissioner,
and for that one, because
you've already explained this
one,
before,
I think this is very important. Actually, I think this is very important because it's these small steps that we need to be given credit for doing.
Okay.
You know, it is important that as we build the confidence of the Kenyan people, because in the end we're talking about the Kenyan voter, they're able to see the other positive parts in which the IEBC comes out firmly and says we are going to implement the law, and this is the law, and the law is very clear.
But I think on that
and on
you were
all
clear,
other
because
things.
you've said that in the beginning. I'm sorry, Commissioner, I want to move it because I don't think you're answering my question regarding campaigning at the moment. I think to give credit where it's due, yes, you've managed with the process of nominations. I think that is clear. But on the issue of campaigns,
Yvonne,
is the Commission able to stop them from doing
I think
premature
what is
campaigns?
important to the Kenyan people, for me, and for us as commissioners, what is important and what has direct impact to the Kenyan voters out there, to our women voters out there, to our women aspirants out there, is the nature of the campaigns, whether those campaigns are peaceful or whether those campaigns are violent. And I think the focus and the emphasis that the IEBC is going to be giving, and you will see us giving that focus in the next few days and few weeks as we head to our E-Day, is really to ensure that we have a process in which thuggery does not dominate, that all voices are heard, and that violence is not used as a means for people getting away with things that they don't need to get away with. So I think for us as a commission, that is important because that has a direct impact on the Kenyan voter out there, who is our number one stakeholder.
Okay. Perhaps the fact that the commissioners will bear individual criminal liability in the electoral process is something that might help and might help in terms of just creating a credible election. In the past, staff commissioners may have been able to engage in mischief and get away with it. But so is this something that the commission, has prepared to do, and does this make things a little tougher for you in terms of accountability?
Not tougher in terms of accountability. I think that is the kind of thing that we need. We need to have, we welcome the fact that those changes in the Election Offences Act now put personal liability not only on us as commissioners, not only on our staff, our permanent staff, but the presiding officers that we hire, who are not our staff, who are only temporary staff that we have, and who actually are the ones who have a big role to play in the elections. Because as you know, with the laws now, the results in the polling center, the polling station are the final results. Yeah. So actually the responsibility, the higher level of responsibility is with our polling, our presiding officers and the polling clerks. And so the fact that now everybody who is involved in this process has personal liability, criminal liability, should be a lesson. And what we have done with our training modules that we have started rolling out is to actually emphasize that, to tell our staff that it is not only the IEBC that is going to be sued on this one. You will be held criminally responsible for anything that you do during election day. And I think for me, the Kenyan people deserve that. The Kenyan voter deserves that level of accountability, and we absolutely welcome it, because that is how we hope that will ensure that people are more transparent in how they operate, that our temporary staff that we'll be hiring for that period know that they will be held criminally responsible for anything that they do during that time.
Including the commissioners?
Absolutely including the commissioners.
So the recent...
and the chairman.
And the chairman, absolutely. The recent court ruling on tallying and the results of the constituency being final, you talked about that, so people say, okay, so what does this mean for your operations? Because obviously you have to make changes. Need for a national tallying center then?
We're going to be looking at the court ruling. As you know, it just came out recently. We've not had a chance to have our lawyers review it. And fortunately for me, I am not a lawyer. So I can always hide under that cover that I have not had a chance to be able to get that interpretation. But I think for me, all we are talking about here, Yvonne, is the Kenyan people wanting to ensure that you have a transparent process in which their votes are counted. That in the end, it is that when you have a person putting in their vote at that booth, that it reflects, that the results that we announce reflect the will of the people. And so for me, I think that is what is important. It's telling Kenyans, coming out and telling Kenyans, what measures are we putting in place to ensure that we have a transparent process. We'll be having a national tallying center because the law still says that it is the returning officer, the national returning officer, who's the chairman of the IEBC, who has the authority to declare the winner. You know, announcing results is one thing, but declaration of the winner is constitutionally given to the chairman of the IEBC as the returning officer.
Right.
So we want to make sure that that tallying center, the national tallying center, is an open place. There are no rooms. I have seen videos of previous national tallying centers where there are rooms where people work on different things. Everything will be on the open floor. There will be videos. Media is invited to have their coverage in the National Tallying Center. We want to make sure that it's a transparent process. There's nothing we are hiding. And so it will be, the National Tallying Center will be open in terms of videos to be able to be observed and watched and monitored by the Kenyan citizens.
Okay. Here's a question from our viewer. He's called Sky T. Kariuki. He says, no matter how many rules IEBC forms, politicians always pass them over and still go free. And this is something that's been seen, I mean, by politicians, not just with your commission, but the National Cohesion and Integration Commission and a number of others, including the EACC. So what is there that says that this commission is going to be tough, is going to lay down the law and ensure that these politicians who, you know, at will decide to circumvent the law and to ignore the commission. Surely, even when you take a look at the office of the Registrar of Political Parties, still in an acting position for over 6 years, a lot of the things that come out of that office sometimes are, you know, overridden by the politicians. So what is there? What can you say to Sky that says this commission, this set of commissioners has the teeth to bite and say, this is the law and this is the way in which we're going? Do you have that capacity?
Yvonne, once we have the law, we have the capacity to show that we are able, not only to show, but to prove that we are able to implement what is in there in the law. The other issues that you raised, that he raised, are very valid points that I wish I would be able to come back as a private citizen who doesn't have an IBC role to come and discuss with you, because they're actually very important issues about how you know, why set laws when those laws are shelved? Why establish institutions that you end up making toothless? Why come up with the structures that you end up making helpless? So those are issues that I would be glad to come back, Yvonne, at some point as a private Kenyan citizen to discuss. But for now, in terms of the laws that exist, the laws that the Kenyan citizen expects us to follow by, we will go by it. We will be firm. We will show our firmness on it in all aspects. Because remember, the key goal really for us as the IEBC in 2017 is to really make sure that we give Kenyans what they deserve, what they have yearned for a long time. That is free, fair, and really, really credible elections, and hopefully very peaceful elections too.
Okay, so your final comment on, you know, just creating predictable systems for predictable outcomes. I mean, there's been quite a few setbacks with the tendering procedures, court cases, you know, on the ballot printing and the tendering route that we've seen with the integrated electoral management system, you know, auditing the voter register, you know, at least that's now out of the way. But, you know, just having a system that's predictable and that is well understood by all players, both on, you know, the political side as well as the most critical part of this process, which is the voter. Could you just speak to that, you know, in closing, about how predictable these systems are and the outcome in terms of it being free and fair and credible?
You know, Yvonne, I don't want to leave here without with any doubt that the IBC is ready to undertake elections. We are absolutely ready. We have been preparing very hard on that. We now have the systems in place that you talk about, predictable systems in place. We have the KIMS in place. Actually, just to add that the one element of the KIMS is already in the country, the one on candidate management for purposes of the nominations. We are already using it in the system. We are going to be having political parties training so that they understand the nomination system that we are using in place. We are expecting the KIMS technology to be here in the country this week. All factors kept constant, and we have already communicated to political parties that we will be exhibiting the kits. We will show them how they work. We are on track with the training of all our staff to make sure that they are ready for the process. We are on track with our voter education programs that we'll be rolling out. We are on track with ensuring that we have all the material, the rest of the material. You know, there's a lot of talk about the KIMS and everything else, but people forget that elections are actually, from my many years of working on elections in various parts of the world, it is a very tough operational, logistical exercise. Many say that it's, you know, besides going to war, it is the highest, most expensive and most operationally complex exercise any country can have. And that's what we've been doing. There are things back end that you don't get to see on a daily basis. The logistics of the election. Where are we going to have the various polling stations? Where are we going to have the various warehouses? Are we cleaned? Are they ready? What is going to be our logistics plan for transporting all the material from one place to another? How are we going to, you know, recruitment of all the more than 80,000 people that we'll be having? Training for all the 85,000 police officers that will be working on this. Training the various organizations that are going to be doing civic education and also monitoring and observing. Interacting with the international community that is going to be observing our elections to ensure that they understand the context of the elections. So there are all these back-end things that we are spending a lot of time as commissioners. As I mentioned to you, we haven't had a single weekend to ourselves because we are working hard to make sure that all these systems are in place.
Just a quick one before we close, and this is to do with auditing of the voter register. Speak to us about, you know, where that is and when, you know, the voters can then have a chance to inspect the voter register and ensure that, you know, all details, you know, are correct.
Yvonne, I'm very happy that you've asked the question on the voter register because it's the bedrock of an electoral process. If you don't have a good register, then you might as well.
We will have one this
time?
We
will have one register.
Just one voter register,
we
not
will
this
have
one and that one from which, you know, which election?
We can absolutely assure you we'll have one register. And what we are doing now, we've been doing the cleaning up process. We have about 19.5 million voters right now. We have had very good discussions with KPMG, the company that was awarded the tender to clean up the register. We've agreed on the methodology that they'll be using for purposes of the audit. KPMG will be meeting from tomorrow onwards with stakeholders from both sides, from all the political parties, to explain to them the methodology that they will be using. I have, as an expert on elections, I have looked at the methodology they'll be using. It's the same that we have seen used in Afghanistan, in Nigeria, and in Ghana recently. So I'm confident that the methodology that they are using will address the biggest concerns of the Kenyans, which is how do you get the dead voters out? How do you ensure that two big elements, completeness and accuracy of the register, are taken care of? So the methodology they have is very thorough. And I'm very happy as an expert to see that they are very thorough actually in their process of doing that. Political parties will be given the chance to keep monitoring the process as it goes. KPMG will be doing it independent of the IEBC, just to ensure that it is a credible process, that we are not accused of manipulating what KPMG is doing. So they are doing it as an independent audit company. It's a reputable audit company. And we are sure that once they put this together, once they get the register back, by law, we are required to report back to Parliament on their findings. And then the Kenyans will have a chance from May 11th of now seeing the register, but not only seeing the register, but going to their various polling stations and biometrically verifying their information there. So they will have 1 full month, 30 days to look through the register, to interrogate the register, and we urge all Kenyans to do that because that will ensure that any mistakes that are left from this process are cleaned up.
And that's just about a month from now, actually.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. That's Dr. Roselyn Akombe, who's a commissioner with the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Speaking to us about election preparedness ahead of that election, which is just 120 days from today. Are you convinced? Are you happy? Well, please do let me know. Hashtag is Checkpoint at KTN News and at Yvonne Okwara We're taking a break, but we'll be right back. We have your numbers for the week. You also don't want to miss my editorial that's coming up much later in the bulletin, but we have much more for you when we return. Thanks for staying with us.